Imagine this. A video game director releases a story about an America plagued by isolation, where masked couriers deliver packages to a population too afraid to step outside. A year later, the world is in lockdown, delivery drivers are hailed as essential workers, and face masks have become a global norm. That's not coincidence, that's Hideo Kojima. For over 30 years, Kojima has been crafting stories that feel less like escapism and more like a mirror held up to society, from digital surveillance to the corporatization of war, to even the collapse of truth itself in the digital age. His games consistently touch on issues that later dominate real-world headlines. But how does a game designer end up feeling more like a prophet? Let's walk through Kojima's career and uncover how, time and time again, his strange, cinematic and often eccentric visions foreshadowed the future. When Metal Gear Solid released in 1998, most players were focused on the novelty of stealth gameplay, cinematic cutscenes, and Kojima's quirky boss battles. But the real brilliance was buried in the narrative. The game introduces the Genome Soldiers, genetically enhanced operatives created by tinkering with DNA. At the time, the Human Genome Project was still underway, and genetic engineering sounded more like science fiction than public policy. Yet, Kojima's story was already asking big questions. What happens when governments start tailoring soldiers in labs? What ethical lines blur when biology becomes just another military tool? Even more haunting was the game's obsession with surveillance. Remember, this was pre-smartphone, pre-social media, even pre-Patriot Act. Most people still thought of the internet as a curiosity. Yet Kojima painted a world where information, not weapons, is the real power, and the ability to monitor and manipulate data is more dangerous than a nuclear arsenal. In hindsight, Metal Gear Solid 1 feels less like a late 90s video game, and more like a warning about the world we live in now. One where CRISPR headlines make gene editing real, and governments debate how far they can go in surveilling their citizens for safety. If the first Metal Gear Solid was prophetic, its sequel was downright chilling.